since we're already on this side, we also have some melee weapon changes, and we actually have them in two different categories. So the first one would be the stamina based changes, meaning the changes were based on the stamina consumption of those weapons. And so one more heavy attack is now possible with a few weapons, such as the heavy knife and the saber.
Yes, let's talk about them one after the other. So the heavy knife, one of the balancing things that we have been always trying to keep and maintain was the balance between the heavy knife and the regular knife. And one of the things that we used to kind of differentiate them with is that the normal knife can always do 4 heavy attacks, while the heavy knife could not. And while in general that approach was okay, it didn't really reflect the reality of how these weapons are being used, because the heavy knife actually is more effective against normal AI if you just use a regular attack. So you can just easily kill them with like slashes to like the upper torso head area, while the heavy attack is more used against like bigger threats. Now that left you at a severe disadvantage, for example, when you went up against like a pack of hellhounds with a heavy knife. Especially since we introduced like the throwing axe, which is kind of overlapping a little bit with the heavy knife as well. Well, it takes more stamina, but you can then throw it. Like it overall felt like the heavy knife is getting a lot of pressure from multiple directions now. So giving it one more heavy attack, so reducing the stamina consumption so that you can do one more heavy attack, felt like we actually opening a bit more room for that weapon. And hopefully we also see the numbers go up a little bit in terms of usage with it, compared to how it is being played on right now. For the saber, it's a similar thing. However, the saber is more about like that. We felt most people usually bring bayonets if they want to have that type of gameplay. And that means you can get a gun, you can get the stab attack. Usually, like 2 or so stabs is enough to deal with most things coming your way. So the dedicated saber felt sometimes as if it's a little bit out of place. Like why sacrifice that one slot that you could use for a pistol just for this added melee option? So at least we want to make it sure that like it's a bit more worthwhile, even though it wasn't probably the biggest of an issue, by just giving you also one more heavy attack you can do with it, just overall making the saber a bit more of a flexible choice.
Yeah, I think those will be appreciated by especially those that love the heavy knife like myself. So great stuff. But as mentioned earlier, we also have a different category of melee weapon changes which were based on damage. And this will affect the machete, first of all.
So let's talk about the machete first. So the thing here is like we didn't want to do anything with stamina on this one, because we felt like machete already is pretty economic when it comes to stamina consumption. Specifically the regular attacks, you can just like kill almost like any AI coming your way easily with 1 or 2 strikes and don't run out of stamina that easily. So it wasn't a problem, and instead we felt like the weapon is just a bit underperforming. So what we did is increase the heavy attack base damage slightly. It's not going to insta-kill players, so we didn't take it that far up. We remember some people have been with us for some time, and you know how the machete was in past days. So we didn't want to go directly back to that. However, like before it was like 110, 120 damage to torso. Now it's like 135. It does the heavy bleeding stuff. So it's putting a lot more pressure on the players. But it also adds another change here to it, which is that you can now kill an armored in 2 heavy strikes. So this is similar to what you can do with a stab of a saber. That kind of means that the saber and the machete become a bit closer, just like the heavy knife and the knife are getting a bit closer. So it's more of a style question. Do you want the precision of the stab, which I think many people will agree was like the thing that really makes the knife stand out over the heavy knife for them, the reliability of the attack? Or do you want, like in this case, like the option to slash and hit multiple enemies at the same time, for example? Like doing heavy attacks against like a group of hellhounds usually means you can easily kill 2 of them at the same time.
Yeah,
so,
this is awesome, and it really reminds me of this one guy named Fisk who always run around the machete, so hope we can see him back in the bayou too.
Yeah, I mean, it also means like, so for example, I have to admit to myself, I haven't been using the sickle for quite a while. There used to be like a heavy knife option, for example. I haven't used I have used quite a lot back then, but since the throwing axe came out, I've not used it. And I really like that one just because of just how awesome it feels to be using that sickle in melee. But I haven't been doing that for a while. So for me, for example, the changes on the heavy knife will definitely mean I'll try that one out. And with the machete as well, I definitely want to try tried a couple things with the machete more because I haven't honestly been using it quite a lot recently either. So I think it just adds a little bit more space to them, and rather than always going for the saber, which is what I did when I chose a melee weapon, I will definitely go and try out the machete more as well now.
Yeah, that sounds really nice. And but Dennis, it was not the only thing that got changed based on damage, but we have all the Talon variants.
So the Talon, that's more of a bigger change because we're kind of re-envisioning the Talon a little bit. So what is the Talon right now? Let's maybe recap that. So the Talon right now allows you to do, I think, roughly 5 or so heavy melee attacks, and it's a little bit more powerful than a machete, but it's usually not enough to kill AI easily. Like it kind of underperforms, and it doesn't really do the trick for warranting to bring it along. Sure, it's not a bad attachment to have, but its role has never been really clear, right? It tried to do like multiple things, like target mobs, but then again also like try to take on the bigger enemies, killing players. Sure, that was possible with it. You could want to kill the players, but against AI it was kind of lackluster. So instead of trying to just tune a little bit with it, we have re-envisioned a little bit what it means. So it now acts exactly like a strike from the combat axe, or the axe you can find in the world. However, it only has 2 heavy attacks possible. Now that means that you can basically bring it into a boss fight, for example, without having to look for an axe, which is, I think, probably going to be very handsome for if you fight Scrapnik, for example, who stole all the stuff, right? But you can only do 2 attacks. The normal combat axe allows you to do 3 strikes before you run out of stamina. So if you didn't bring a stamina shot, that one definitely gives you options, but it is kind of limited. So what you do with it is now you kind of try to prime the attack, which you know is very slow and cumbersome, so it never really leaned itself very well to these like combo successive strikes. You prime it, you do your ambush as before. It still can kill players, but it does so a little bit more reliably now even. But you use that to like one strike an armor. You use that to go against the boss. Like you don't use it against groups of enemies. This is where you go for your tool or your machete now or whatever. So it has a specific purpose. Kind of re-envision it a little bit to be your pocket combat axe.
Someone asked if now the Talon can break down reinforced doors then, like the combat axe with 2 heavy hits.
Try it out on test server.
Good answer.
But it does more damage, which means door receives more damage.